Stolen land. Stolen people. Stolen wealth. And no reparations. The world we live in today is not a product of peace or fairness, it is a map redrawn by blood, brutality, and boundless greed. For over 5 centuries, European powers carved the globe into empires, fueling their rise with forced labor, genocide, and mass theft. This is not just history, this is a crime scene. And the victims? Africa. Asia. The Americas. The Pacific. And their descendants. This is the untold story of how Europe conquered the world, and never gave it back. They told us colonialism brought progress. Railroads, schools, and Christianity. But that was just propaganda. In truth, colonialism brought starvation, slavery, and soul-crushing exploitation. European powers cloaked their greed in the rhetoric of civilizing missions. But their true goal? Control. Resources. Wealth. Missionaries weren't just preachers, they were scouts. Education wasn't liberation, it was indoctrination. And Christianity wasn't salvation, it was often a tool to break spiritual resistance. The British Empire used education systems to train local elites who would uphold colonial rule. In Algeria, the French sought to assimilate locals, stripping away their language and Islamic identity. In the Philippines, Spain imposed Catholicism to reshape native beliefs. Civilization didn't arrive. It was imposed. By fire. By bullets. By chains. 1884, Berlin. Without a single African at the table, European leaders divided the continent like a pie. This was the scramble for Africa, a polite name for organized theft. In the Congo, King Leopold II of Belgium ran a private colony where over 10 million Africans were killed in the name of rubber extraction. Hands were chopped off for missing quotas. Children mutilated. Villages destroyed. In French West Africa, forced labor was the law. In German Namibia, the Herero and Nama were hunted to near extinction. Britain exploited Nigeria's palm oil and built infrastructure solely for extraction. Portugal held on to its colonies, Angola and Mozambique, through violent repression until the 1970s. Entire generations were denied education, healthcare, and rights. Colonial borders cut through tribes, cultures, and families. And those artificial lines still spark conflict today. Africa was not poor. It was made poor. India, once the world's richest region, was bled dry by the British Empire. The East India Company arrived as traders, but quickly became rulers. Taxes were raised. Industries destroyed. Famines engineered. The 1943 Bengal famine killed over 4 million Indians, while Churchill's Britain exported grain to Europe. The British used India as a cash cow, extracting cotton, tea, and spices. Local textile industries were crushed, forcing dependence on British imports. Famines occurred not from scarcity, but from hoarding and profiteering. India's railways? Built to extract resources, not empower the people. British officers and troops had exclusive cars while Indians were packed in misery. The British looted temples, stole jewels, and erased India's self-reliance. The Kohinoor diamond, now in the British Crown, remains a symbol of that theft. When they finally left in 1947, they left behind chaos, poverty, and a divided nation. In 1492, Columbus arrived, and apocalypse followed. Within decades, 90% of the indigenous population in the Americas was dead. Disease, slaughter, and slavery decimated entire civilizations, the Taino, the Inca, the Aztec. The Spanish Empire ransacked the Americas for gold and silver. Entire cities like Potosí in Bolivia became extraction zones for Spain's enrichment. Millions were forced into meta labor systems, essentially slavery. The Portuguese enslaved millions in Brazil's sugar fields. The Catholic Church sanctioned conversion by force, erecting missions where native languages and beliefs were criminalized. The doctrine of discovery gave European monarchies divine right to seize non-Christian lands. Entire empires justified extermination with crosses in one hand, and muskets in the other. This was not discovery, it was destruction. The Caribbean islands were death camps for enslaved Africans. British, French, and Dutch empires built sugar fortunes on the backs of brutalized laborers. Conditions were so horrific that enslaved people often didn't survive more than 5 years. Barbados, Jamaica, Saint-Domingue, now Haiti, became sugar machines. Plantations operated 24/7, fueled by human suffering. Enslaved people were branded like cattle, beaten into obedience, and denied families. Resistance was common: poisonings, uprisings, sabotage. The 1791 Haitian Revolution was a turning point, the only successful slave revolt in history. But it came at a cost. Haiti was punished by European powers and forced to pay billions in reparations to France. Today, the Caribbean still pays colonial debts, while the nations that grew rich off their labor offer no apology. Colonial powers didn't just steal land, they stole memory. In schools across the colonies, children were taught to admire their oppressors. African, Asian, and indigenous languages were banned. Histories were rewritten. British colonies promoted Empire Day celebrations. French colonies forced children to memorize the names of European rivers but ignored their own. The goal was clear: to create a class of colonized minds who would serve the empire and never question its crimes. Writers like Ngugi wa Thiong'o and Frantz Fanon exposed this mental slavery. Colonization of the mind, they said, was the most dangerous form. This mental colonization still lingers. It's why many still equate whiteness with progress, and their own cultures with backwardness. But the colonized did not go quietly. From Haiti to Kenya, from Algeria to India, resistance blazed. Toussaint Louverture led the first successful slave revolt in Haiti. The Zulu, under Shaka and later Sechueo, resisted British incursions with strategic brilliance. The Mau Mau Rebellion in Kenya saw freedom fighters detained, tortured, and killed by the British. In Algeria, the FLN waged a brutal war of independence against the French, who responded with mass torture and bombings. Gandhi's Salt March and civil disobedience inspired global movements. But not all resistance was non-violent. Many fought and died with guns in their hands. Colonial archives downplayed or erased these stories. But the truth is clear: the oppressed always fought back. The East India Company. The Dutch VOC. These were not just companies, they were colonial war machines. They raised armies, signed treaties, toppled governments, all in the name of profit. They pioneered the corporate takeover of entire nations. The Dutch VOC established a monopoly in the spice trade, brutalizing Indonesian islands. The British East India Company controlled India's economy and had its own army of 260,000 soldiers. Many modern companies, Shell, Barclays, Unilever, and De Beers, grew rich off colonial exploitation. Their foundations lie in the blood and minerals of colonized lands. Even museums and universities in Europe were funded by colonial loot. Corporate colonialism never ended. It just rebranded. When the flags came down, the chains remained. Political independence did not mean economic freedom. The World Bank, the IMF, and French monetary systems kept ex-colonies in debt. The French CFA franc, still used in 14 African countries, is controlled by France's central bank. Loans from global institutions came with strings: cut healthcare, privatize water, sell national assets. Revolutionary leaders who resisted this, Patrice Lumumba in Congo, Thomas Sankara in Burkina Faso, Amilcar Cabral in Guinea-Bissau, were assassinated or overthrown with Western support. Today, military bases, trade pacts, and development aid ensure that true sovereignty is always just out of reach. The West feared true African and Asian independence, not because of incompetence, but because it threatened their profits. Germany paid reparations for the Holocaust. The US paid Japanese Americans for internment. But nothing has been paid to Africa, to the Caribbean, to Asia. Stolen labor, stolen minerals, stolen lives, never compensated. Caribbean nations, led by CARICOM, are demanding reparations. African leaders have asked for stolen artifacts, land restitution, and debt cancellation. France made Haiti pay 150 million francs to compensate slave owners for lost property. That debt crippled Haiti's economy for over a century. Reparations aren't about charity. They're about justice. And Europe still owes a great debt. Colonialism didn't end. It evolved. Its scars are everywhere, in global poverty, in racist systems, in broken economies, in looted museums. This is not ancient history. It is current reality. And the voices of the colonized are rising. No justice. No peace. The dark legacy of colonialism must be confronted. And the world must never forget.